Hi, in this lecture we are going to learn how to use records with cursors. In the previous examples we fetched our cursor values into some variables that we created. In these examples we had only 2 or 3 variables. But what will we do if we have 10 or 20 or more columns? Will we create so many variables? Not really. Most of the times we use cursors with records. We have 3 ways to do that. Let me show you one by one. First, let's check our previous example. In the first example, we have 2 columns selected from the table. So we have 2 variables for that. Creating a record for these 2 variables is not an efficient way, but it is valid. Most probably you won't use that, but let me show you anyway. Let's create a record type and a record variable first. We know how to do that. So let's write type r_amp is record, and the values are, let me copy from here. These are the variables of our record. And our record variable, let's say v_amp, the type is r_amp. Now we need to change our fetches. So fetch into our record v_amp. And now we need to write our record's name before our variables. So v_amp dot v first name and v_amp dot v last name. Now let's run it. As we can see, it is valid, but not so efficient because we typed more than before. This can be useful when you have a schema level record type in your database. But even so, I recommend you not to use that. So if this is not a good way, what else can we do? The second way is, since we selected from only one table, we can get the row type of the table. Let me show you. Now I'm clearing here, and vamp is equal to employees %row type. Now we have something in our fetch. We know that our vamp has many variables, but our cursor select statement has only 2 columns. So if we write vamp directly, we will have an error. So we need to write the column names with the same order of the select query. Let's see. Vamp dot first name, because our name comes from this employees table, and vamp dot last name. Now we need to change our fetch clause. So I write v_amp dot first name, and with a semicolon I write v_amp dot last name. Now let's run it. As we can see, it works, no problem. This usage is also valid, but there is a minor problem in here. Even if we have only 2 columns, our record has many rows in it and we don't use them. So it is not a good thing. Besides, what will we do if our select query has more than one table? We cannot use that in this condition. Right that time, we face with the third usage of records with cursors. This usage is the most efficient, most useful, and the easiest usage. We can simply create a record with the cursor's row type. Let me show you. I simply write c_amps %row type. As we can see, pretty simple. Now let's run it. Now our record has only 2 columns and they are created automatically. If our query has 10 columns, our record has exactly 10 columns. Exactly the same number and the same data type of the columns that's selected in our cursor select query. We generally use this usage in our codes, and I recommend you to use that too, because you don't care about the data types or column numbers or column order, etc. You simply use it with one line code. One last thing. In the previous usages, the record declaration area was not so important, but in here it is important. Why? Let me show you. I'm deleting here and writing before the cursor. Now let's clear up and run. As we can see, we had an error because since the code is read from top to bottom, our cursor has not declared yet. But we tried to create a record type that its type is not yet created. So we need to write our cursor record after the declaration of our cursor statement. So using records with cursors is an easy subject, but we need to know because we generally use cursors with a third usage that I showed you. So this is the end of this lesson. See you in the next lectures.